we're not necessarily here long term doing anything. We are setting up the foundation, the true foundation for their business to be able to scale. So now they say, oh, my CRM is built up. I have these lead magnets. I have these landing pages. Everything connects. I can see my numbers automatically because they've set up the automations to be able to do so.
Hey, welcome back to the Real Estate Excellence Podcast. Today's guest is a proven force behind one of the nation's most successful real estate teams, helping close to over 3,000 transactions, recruiting and training 150 plus agents, and launching 21 expansion locations across the U.S. She now leads a company that specializes in replacing chaos with clarity, building custom systems and structure for agents ready to scale with confidence. If you're an agent tired of duct taping your business together and want to operate like a true CEO, this episode is for you. Please welcome the founder and CEO of Core Ops Collective, Lauren Duke.
Hello.
Good morning. I really appreciate you coming on and reaching out to me and telling me a little bit about your business, because I think of all the agents that I've had on, this is episode 287, so I probably had 270 agents on. They have challenges with, breaking through the lid, as I call it, trying to do everything themselves, and then try to start to scale their business and create the systems that you help in, and you built this company around to help coach them and bring them to that next level.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of times agents get to a point where, just like you said, they're doing it all themselves. They're trying to wear every single hat in their business, but at the end of the day, they don't even know what systems are to begin with, to know really even where to start. And that's where we come in.
I'm going to jump forward because this question's just been on the tip of my brain, getting prepared for the show today. Is I always talk about the importance of what brokerage you go to, and how so many of these brokerages, I think a lot of agents think the brokerage is going to do what you do for them, which I'm sure there are some that do because they're advanced and out in front, but majority of them do not really get into the weeds of what your services provide.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think a lot of brokerages, they offer the compliance software and they offer, certain marketing things, but nothing is tailored to the agent. At the end of the day, regardless of the brokerage, they want the business to stay with the brokerage,
Right. Well, I love CRMs. However, as a loan officer and soldier on the ground doing what I do as my day job, and a real estate agent doing what they do in their day job, they really don't have time to spend and really utilize their CRMs for all the things that they do. And they really do need the support of an operations staff behind them to really either put them directly on the path of, yes, this is how you do it, boom, 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 ABC, move on, or it just never gets done.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, for the most part, it doesn't get done. And that's just because there's 9,000 ways you can go with it, right? And someone will tell you, oh, you have to, only use your CRM for a contact database, essentially. And you have other people that are saying, no, you have to build it out to an immense amount in order for it to be successful. And really, it depends on what you want for your business.
Right. I spent so many times through these different trainings, actually, with CRMs, and they basically just overwhelm you with a tidal wave. And anyone, because it can do so many different things, but you need to pick the 2 or 3 things that you want, and that question's never asked. But I'm going to move on with that soapbox on CRMs. Lauren, tell us a little bit of your background. What was young Lauren looking to do, 18, 19 years old, and then, what led you to get into the real estate industry?
So I actually was a hairdresser. I went to cosmetology school, and Then I got married very young to his military spouse, moved all over the world. And when I was living in Italy, I had my first son. We moved back to the States and I was like, oh, I don't want to go back into a traditional, 9 to 5, put my kid in daycare sort of job because you weren't allowed to work in Italy. So I was like illegally doing hair out of my house. It was a bit, but so I didn't want to go, when we moved back to the States, we moved to Tennessee. I didn't want to have to put my kid in daycare. He was 9 months old. And I decided, okay, what can I do from home? Started a virtual assistant business and posted about it on Facebook, had a friend connect me with a real estate agent that she formerly had worked for and was like, hey, she's looking for a transaction coordinator. And I was like, cool, what's that? I'll figure it out, right? Like, I have no idea what that is, but surely it couldn't be too hard. And that was my famous last words, right? I was sweating bullets, emailing someone because I was just so afraid I was going to make a mistake, but ended up coming onto that real estate team full time as TC, but also, an operations role as well. And had no idea that when I joined, the CEO had this big vision of, opening up new team locations in around these military bases. Okay. And so we went from that one location with 4 agents. And I think within 8 months, we had 4 or 5 locations with about 30 or 40 agents. And it kind of just took off from there. We just kept growing.
Really focusing, I guess this broker was focused on the military community.
Correct. Yes.
Interesting. Okay. All right. So what did you enter doing some transaction coordinating for them? Mm-hmm. And then obviously, as the top teams that I know here locally around me, they eventually truly need an operations person. But here's an interesting thing that I learned. I was telling you a little bit about the young lady that I've had in that she helps agents like you do from a different angle than what you're specializing in. She's specializing in on a different side, but she approached the team lead, who was a very successful agent, unfortunately no longer with us, passed away a couple of years ago or a year ago. Anyway, she said, well, what does an operations person do? So she spent a year investigating, interviewing, calling on. She was with Keller Williams, so I assume she was calling other Keller Williams top teams that had operations managers and like, what does an operations manager do? Officer, your COO. So tell us a little bit how the migration into your full role there.
So we grew so quickly and very early on was like, hey, we have so many transactions going on. I can't do this by myself. So I ended up hiring another military spouse, another friend, and taught her how to TC while I kind of focused on the expansion portion, getting in with other market centers and finding recruits, finding team leads, building out the training programs, building out the onboarding. I wasn't even worried about retention at this point because it was all very much like, oh, we have so many agents coming. We just need to figure out how to get them in. So they kind of built itself up naturally as the team did. However, I was a hairdresser before this. Like I had no idea.
No formal training on how to do a lot of these things. Yeah.
No MBA sitting on my wall right now.
Right.
I very much learned by trial and error, and there were quite a few of those. We'll put it that way. I made roughly, I joke, like we closed 3,000 transactions, and I also made 3,000 mistakes.
So how do you, because you are, what do they call it, learning by fire or something like that, basically failing forward. I'm sure that whole, for those listening out there right now and probably do have friends, or maybe there's some real estate agents who may not be real estate agents, much longer because this is not working out for them, but may still want to be in the real estate industry and see this avenue. You obviously had to pull some resources in. Were you with a large brokerage where there was other people to call on and other franchises or whatever, or from a corporate standpoint to kind of learn some of these things that should be going on in the backside, or were you and the broker kind of hand in hand with this?
No, so we were with Keller Williams.
Mm-hmm.
So there we did have, all of the KW resources available to us. And then I learned quickly on that having, an operations coach was incredibly important to not just help me self-discover, my own potential within the role, but also kind of go through and help strategize, hey, am I even on the right path with this?
Yeah. Yeah. I can imagine, going down a whole, you're trying to accomplish a particular thing, which I'm sure you can give us an example of, and then realize you just wasted a lot of time, energy, and I'm sure money going down this when the coach kind of helped you, said, that's not going to work. I would recommend this or that.
Well, also I'm stubborn at the same time. So one of the first conversations that I had with my coach, who I still coach with today, actually, but one of the very first conversations that we had, she was like, what is your team's culture? And your culture can't be family. And I was like, no. That's what ours is. Like, we're one big happy family, like that's how we operate. And she was like, that can't work. Like, you need to embody some core values in there as well. You need to be able to say, no, this is what our mission is. This is what we're aiming towards, instead of just feeling like one big happy family. And I was so determined to prove her wrong, because I was like, no. That's what ours is. And it was the day that someone was like, are you guys a real estate team, or, do you operate more like a sorority? And I was like, oh man, she's right. She's right. Okay, got it. Understood.
A sorority.
It was a rough day, honestly.
That's funny, but it is true. I mean, I see it around here. Obviously, I'm on social media a lot because I put a lot of stuff out on social media from the show and so forth. And there are some groups but that's how they bond. That's how now, are they operating together? No, I think actually when they they go home and get on their laptop or whatever and are, putting in deals and structuring deals, they're, running their own operations department. But on the face of it, it looks like a big sorority and everyone's having fun. But then it comes down to a point, because I think when you started to mention that, it made me think that this person was getting to the point, well, you've got to have some structure. It just can't be just the family, what we appear to be a family bond. There has to be something bonding it stronger than that, as far as non-family people acting as family, I should say.
Well, it's just having like standards and expectations too, and even a culture of accountability or a culture of lead generation. We can't just always rely on, the head of the family, so to speak, to kind of feed the rest of us. We have to all participate, and we can't just operate as if we are waiting on someone else to step in and do it for us.
So that leads us, so when you get up to working here with 21 locations, obviously you're probably, I would imagine, 60 to 80 agents or something of that nature. You can tell us the details there. But what did you build it to? What did your operation side look like as far as you and any other, transaction coordinators, marketing people? What did it look like when you had it all built out?
I think the most amount of admin staff we had at one time was around 22, 25.
Wow.
Admin. We had a lot. Yeah.
How many agents?
At that point, we probably had about 100.
Okay. So basically one for every 5 agents, roughly.
We had too many admin because of the fact that our operations were not efficient. We didn't have accountability standards. We didn't have, hey, in your role, you're going to be focusing on this, and this. And there's not, there was always the gray. And that was one of the biggest mistakes that we made. Unfortunately, we couldn't kind of create that culture together. And I no longer saw eye to eye with the CEO. So we ended up parting ways.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the whole basis of how Core Ops came to be, was because there are so many real estate agents and businesses out there that are just winging it and flying by the seat of their pants. And they have this potential, but they can't figure out how to slow down long enough to say, no, this is really what I want. This is who my target audience is. This is what my messaging is going to look like. This is how we're going to convert clients after they come in. They don't slow down long enough to put those pieces in place. And so I created a framework called Scale that we use in our Strategy to Scale program that walks them through that, essentially, where we're slowing them down just long enough, right, to be able to pull out, what is it that you want? What do you want your culture? Even if it's just you, what do you want people to know you as?
This is really good stuff right here, because you are hitting probably on 90 something percent of what's out there. There's people that don't have teams, don't have operations staff, are probably better than some of the people that do have an operations staff, because they are lost. And it's not whether you're small, it's just because you're small. There's the biggest corporations out there, and I've been with a few of them that are total clusters, and they're not getting there. They don't have a message. I think, and this is my belief, there are potpourri of people from all different, and none of them, they're not on the same page. They're all just coming in day to day, and there's a lot of gray area. And because the lights are still on at 5 o'clock, they're good, and they feel like they've accomplished something, when really they are not moving forward in the ultimate goal, which is to create, the systems and the operations that just, no matter what you put in, it's going to grind it up and put out a beautiful display at the other end, or great service provided.
Yeah, absolutely. And, with that, a lot of agents, they have no idea where to start, because they don't know what the definition of a system even is. My second grader actually came home from school last week, and you would have thought that, I don't know, he won the science fair or something, but he came home and he handed me his homework, and I read it, and I was so excited, because it was, let's talk about a system that you have at home that you use for organization. And I was like, oh my gosh, finally, I never thought that I would be able to, help my kid with this second homework with what I do every day.
Mm-hmm.
We have all of these, look at my office behind me, right? We've got all these nice built-ins and all of these cute bins and organizational things. And
right.
My son decided that he wanted to talk about our $30 Amazon bought, I don't even think it's made out of real metal, shoe organization.
Right.
And it clicked for me, where I was like, oh, but that's the perfect system, because he knows that if he doesn't put his shoes away, we will all trip over them. And if he doesn't put them away, he can lose them and we'll be late for school, and then mom is mad, and all of those things. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing in your business. What do you do every single day to keep you from literally tripping over yourself?
When you're bringing on, or you're talking to, I guess you're just explaining to people what you do. Like you said, these agents, they know they've heard it because they've been to so many trainings and so forth. Oh, you need to have a system. You need to have a system. But, they're told a lot of things, obviously, how to do they need to have social media. They need to be doing this. They need to be doing that. And they definitely can get lost, which I imagine probably cost a lot of them their business, because they're doing the wrong things. They don't have a system in play, that obviously they're spending their time doing money-making activities, in their schedule. They fill it up with too much of stuff that doesn't make them money, type of things. But when you're sitting down, tell us how you get that client that's interested in your business, or maybe you're standing in front of a group of agents just explaining what you do to, obviously, hopefully some of them might be interested in your service. How do you describe it?
We replace survival mode with structure, okay? And we do that through our Strategy to Scale program. We walk you through our signature scale framework, which is S, set the vision. You don't know where you want to go. You don't know where you can go unless you know where you're at right now and where you want to go, okay? So we're going through and we're saying, hey, what is all of this for? What does it look like right now? Where do you want to be in 3 years, 5 years, financial wise, all of those things. So we're setting the vision. We're doing an alignment audit there. And then we go into C, which is capture attention. What does your messaging look like? What are your core values? So if someone else is interested in coming into your business, you know what you're looking for in another person that comes in, right? But also, what are your lead magnets? We're going to go through and we're going to pick 2 to 3 lead gen channels that are the most, revenue generating for you. We're going to help you create the lead magnets and the landing pages and the workflows for that. And then we're going into A, which is acquire business. And that's where we're building out the CRM for you. We're saying, hey, lead comes in through your Facebook group, right? They're downloading this lead magnet. What happens after that? How are we segmenting them? How are we nurturing them in that brand voice that we just created in Capture Attention? Okay. And then also going through our, consults that convert toolkit. So what are you putting in your listing presentation that makes someone be like, oh, I know Lauren and I want her to list my house, Then we're going into L, which is lead with systems. So how does this all come together to show you, okay, we got 10 new leads. We went on, 8 appointments and we got 4 clients. So we know that next month we need to double that if we want to hit that financial goal we set in the beginning. And then E is elevate experience. And so if you don't have the systems set up in the first place, you can't elevate the client experience, because that's where you get burnt out and not every client gets the same consistent experience. So we go through it in that order on purpose, but essentially that's my very long elevator pitch. Go through strategies, programs to kind of just clean up all of your chaos.
Well, I'm big on facts tell, stories sell. So I think you gave us some factual data there, what you do. I'm sure you've had a client, probably multiple ones, but there's always one you probably think of when you're kind of describing, trying to relate to someone what you do. Go through what, a client, what their situation is that you've had, where they were at, obviously I'm sure that's your initial discussion, right? Where are you at right now? Let's get that down. And then by the time you finish this process, what were the biggest changes, which I think for anyone, what is their biggest changes in their day? Did they start time blocking where, I assume you picked up some tasks for them to relieve them to be doing more important tasks that they need to be doing? So you kind of tell us about one of your success stories.
So a lot of our agents come to us and they are all of our agents, I should say, come to us and they are in the messy middle. They are successful, they're productive, they're hitting their number goals, they have the take home that they want each month, but they can't seem to get past a certain point because there's just not enough hours in the day to do everything. And so they know that they need those systems, quote unquote, right? We're putting them in place for them. We're not necessarily here long term doing anything. We are setting up the foundation, the true foundation for their business to be able to scale. So now they say, oh, my CRM is built up. I have these lead magnets. I have these landing pages. Everything connects. I can see my numbers automatically because they've set up the automations to be able to do so. So, we don't do anything long-term unless you were to get into one-on-one coaching and, we train your future admin and things like that. But a lot of people come to us and they're saying, hey, I want to hire an admin, or I've brought a VA on, but I have no idea what they're supposed to be doing.
Right.
So we are the strategists helping you build out what they're supposed to be doing.
I want you to dig in a little bit for us because I think the listeners are obviously primarily our real estate agents that are listening here. So your audience as well as mine, because they're obviously going to see that you've been on the show and hopefully they'll tune in and hear and learn something. Because you were kind of general there a little bit about, most of your agents, this is where they're at when you meet them. Let's describe that a little bit more, because I really wanted to resonate with those that are out there listening. Because if you're not saying, yeah, just listening for the brief 30,000 foot overview that you just gave, and you're an agent that's, well, I don't think that's me. I think we need to probably dig a little bit deeper, because I think, like I said, I think a majority of agents, if they're doing business and they've been in this business 2 or 3 years, and I think the one thing I always describe as you were describing, but the one thing I always add to it is they realize they're not growing. They have good business. They're seeing these other agents, and to me in our area here in Northeast Florida, somewhere between 7 to 10 million in gross volume, they're tapped out. Where, in our probably average price point, I think is give or take in Duval and St. Johns County here, Jacksonville and St. Augustine is probably about give or take 400,000. So you can do your math on how many transactions that is. They're tapping out. In other words, if they're trying to do everything themselves, transaction coordinate, do their own marketing, working their CRM, all the services that I know you can fill in here that I did not just mention. But really describe for us the agent that's coming to you. And I think if you disagree or maybe can add to you probably agree with what I just said, but obviously even give more color to it. What is it really like for that agent that's coming to you that has hit this lid and has gone maybe a year or two without any real growth?
Just like you said, between 5 and 7 million, roughly 2 to 3 units per month. They really hit that lid and they're realizing that not every client gets the same experience. They don't have a past client touch plan, that someone closes and they're like, oh, I want to send them a home anniversary gift next year. And they forgot for 3 years in a row now. They want to do community events or, client appreciation events, but how do you find the time to even start implementing that? Or, they're saying happy birthday on Facebook, but really would love to add in that handwritten, note card or whatever, but they just don't have the touch plan put together to tell them what to do. A lead comes in and they might remember to call them, or they're hoping that the general CRM auto plan that's set up is good enough, and it's not, because they're not getting any nurturers. They're not getting any business being acquired from it.
Mm-hmm.
But they're someone who goes to bed at night and they are like, man, I feel like I didn't check anything off of my to-do list. And they are just constantly in the grind of let's get this one closed and move on to the next one without being able to work actually on the business.
Yeah, the touch point. I mean, I could say there's leads coming in. They call them once, maybe they don't answer. Maybe they send them a text. Then they get busy, and all of a sudden 2 or 3 days go by, and they're like, "Oh my goodness, I didn't try to get that. Stay on top of that lead to try to convert it." This is all money being left on the table because there's no real system in place to make sure stuff's not falling through the cracks.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think every agent out there right now, and there's a bunch of different services. You're setting these systems up for you, which I think, I don't know. Do you have a beginner agent? Should agents really, if the ideal situation for you, would it be an agent who just gets started? They're getting their first few deals. Should they kind of maybe be tuning into some of your training? And is that the ideal situation versus, obviously you're helping a lot that have realized that they don't have systems in place, but they may have gone years and really could be much further along in their real estate careers as far as production is concerned if they actually had these things built in sooner.
We absolutely do have some training that is geared towards more of the newer agent, especially like our, monthly webinars and some of the free things like that. And this is something that we've gone back and forth on because, of course, we want you to be successful from the get-go. But it's also so incredibly hard to know what you like to do, who your ideal audience is, what kind of client you actually want to serve, unless you've seen a bunch of different kinds. If you are 5-7 years in this and you have you did buyers for the first 3 years and now all of a sudden it's turning into listings and you're like, I actually love listings. I don't want to work with buyers at all. Okay, great. Well, let's run with that then. Whereas in the beginning, you're so desperate, so to speak, to have any kind of deal that you're like, oh, you want to buy a home? I don't care where it is. Yeah, I'll drive 3 hours. Sure, great. Let's do it.
Right.
So it's hard to put all of that into place for the brand new agent because you really don't have a good idea of who it is you want to work with. So unfortunately, you do kind of have to go through that trial and error there.
And anyone listening, coreopscollective.com is Lauren's website, core, C-O-R-E, ops, collective.com. You can go on there, and obviously it does give you an overview. And I just want, let's go down through, it's on the services page, just so everyone understands one of the first things you listed here. And I saw there was a photo or demonstration, this business hub that you have. Tell us about the business hub and how someone, which, I think everyone in corporate America, there's some place they can go in their corporate website, I imagine, to get answers. I imagine this is that place.
Yep. Yeah. Very similar. Yes. So our business hub is a Google sheet that we have created to track everything about the transaction, your pipeline. It has a lot of formulas and automations in it. However, I did try to make it where even the most intimidated Google Sheets person can't break it. I promise you can just press undo. It'll all be okay. But you can track everything about the transaction. So you're tracking your lead source, you're tracking the client's information, and that's being, transposed automatically into a buyer checklist, a listing checklist for when things go under contract. So you can follow along. You can really create that touch plan. Once it closed, they go over to the past client list. And again, you can build out what that touch plan looks like for you to just check the little check boxes, make it easy for you to follow along with what you want to be doing for your clients.
CRM build out. I imagine you have clients who are, different brokerages. They're using different CRMs. I don't know. I mean, you've seen I can't say. I mean, in our world, in lending world, most of the several companies I work with, Total Expert is the one we like to use. But imagine a lot of them do a lot of similar things. Maybe some have some new bells and whistles. Do you work within whatever CRM that they have, if they're assuming they're utilizing, or you suggest that they start their own CRM?
It depends. If they are like, hey, I don't really know if this is the brokerage for me, then we're going to kind of talk through, should you be using the KV core that's provided, or should you be using, the whatever one, right? Or would it be better to build out on one that is a little more user friendly? So we walk through different scenarios. We do build out on whichever one it is that you choose. And that comes sometimes at a learning curve to us, because
right.
It may be the first time that we're building it out. So
I went off on a little tangent on CRMs at the beginning of our show here today. What do you find as far as like a lot of these agents, that we described earlier, the majority of the customers you have coming to you, and where these agents and where they're at in their real estate careers, being, overwhelmed, are a lot of them even using their CRM? I would just bet that most of them are not really doing much of anything in their CRM when they come to you.
The typical agent that comes to us, they usually have one that is provided to them, one that is through the website that they purchased, and, maybe one through a marketing company that they signed up with a while ago. So they usually have a variety
multiple.
of
Oh my goodness. Okay.
And they're not using any of them. Or they are like, oh no, I put everybody into my notes app on my phone, which, listen, I'm not here to dog your system, okay? If that's the one that works for you, we'll figure out how to make it work for you, okay? But if there's another way that we could, get integrated with one that is a lot easier for other people to come into your business and use, then we're going to help you figure that out.
What do you, when you're in the CRM, what is as a company, as core ops, your mindset of what kind of things that need to be put on auto for these agents that are going out, because they really don't have time themselves. Obviously here, the company I work for, we got a marketing department, so they've got stuff we can go in there and click and, boom, it's on my Facebook, it's on my LinkedIn, whatever. I can copy and paste if I wanted to. It just, or it just automatically goes over. What are some of the things, and then emails are going out, I don't know, I think they do it weekly or something. We're sending out basically a weekly email. What are some of the real basic things that you need to put that CRM on auto drive with?
Something for new leads. So someone signs up on your landing page to download your buyer guide, right? We need to have that information going into the CRM.
Automatically with that. You're not you manually putting in, just automatically
Right,
going in. Yeah.
right. Automatically nurturing those new leads, saying, hey, are you looking to buy or sell? You know, do you want to know what your home value is? I saw this property and blah, 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 right? Like whatever audience you're talking to. And that's the biggest thing that sets us apart from other companies. There are companies that you can go and download their drip campaigns and get them automatically uploaded into your, follow up us or whatever. Those companies are great. They don't customize the messaging. And so you sound like all of the other agents in your market.
Right.
And who they are talking to isn't going to be who you are talking to. They're not going to, convert the audience that is supposed to be for you. And so that's the biggest thing. And that's why we're so we very much build out what the foundation is, because if you don't know who you're talking to and you just download another template or you just download another, set of emails that are proven to work, are they going to work for your exact audience?
Right. Right. No, I agree. I agree with you. I think a lot of it, I think anyone listening right now, I've been guilty of this too. There's so much stuff out there coming at us and it's like, oh, just click here and it'll do this for you. And you do it, but you're not process focused. In other words, you're not following it all the way through. What if a client entered here and they got on your landing page or website, whatever it is? What's going to happen if they click this and click that and you get the information and then they send the email? What's the email actually look like? Have you actually, walked through it? Have you actually acted like you were the customer and actually saw what they were getting? I guarantee you there's a lot of automation, and I guarantee you there's a lot of stuff falling through the cracks because they haven't actually viewed the system, critiqued it, and tweaked it to work the way they want it to work.
Let's talk about past client touch plans first.
Yeah.
Because what you just said is perfect, where, someone closes, right? And then what is the first thing you want to happen after closing? You want to congratulate them, thank them, and ask them for a review, to help build up your own business. What happens if we ask them once and they don't give a review? Are you asking them again? Are you asking them again? And so what happens if they do give a review, right? We even need to segment out what past client touch plans look like, because if they do give a review, then we're not going to send these other two that are asking them again. Or if they don't give a review, we are going to send those other two emails.
Right. No, I think the past client is the gold. And it's one thing I say it on the show all the time. That customer that's in front of you at that moment in time that you're working with that day is the most important thing you could be doing, because they, if you do it right, could be a walking billboard for you. So you need to finish painting that billboard and giving them great service, and obviously then nurturing them post-close for the referrals, which is the greatest lead that you could get.
And if you don't know what that, past client touch plan needs to look like, that's why we're here, to help strategize through all of that based off of what you want your business to look like.
Right. Yeah.
Oriented, then we're probably going to do some community events in there.
And I can imagine, obviously, some of this stuff you could more critique to the region you're in, whatever it is. Obviously, the information that's going out. But do you have? I'm asking the agents out there to think about for a minute. Have you actually played the role of your past client and what they're getting? And then what's your percentage of actually past clients who are actually completing a Rate My Agent or Google review or something like that? Are you following up on them until they do, or giving them some incentive to do it? Whatever it is, I'm sure Lauren here can help you out with that. Landing pages. This is really interesting. And when we finish up, I want you to stay on, because I want to tell you about something that I want to share with you. But the landing pages, I just think they're not being done because people don't know how to do them. Now, if you go on ChatGPT, it will walk you through, and you can set up a real basic landing page. It will take you several hours, where someone who's done it enough times could take a few minutes and then add the extra thrills to it that you don't have because they've just been doing it a while and have practiced a little bit. But to hire someone to do that, tell us about that service that you offer there. Who's using it, and what are they using it for?
Yeah. So we will go through and set up whatever the system looks like for you to acquire a lead. So for example, if you're having an open house and you know that you want build out a new landing page for each open house, okay, or change the graphics or whatever, cool, great. That's totally fine. Let's set up a Google form that's just super easy. You pull it up on your iPad when someone checks in, they fill out the Google form. That can be a landing page. Okay. Or, we build one out that is connected to your website. And so it says, coreopscollective.com/whatever, right? Or it can be something through your email marketing program like Flowdesk or MailChimp or ActiveCampaign, whatever one that you use, and set up a landing page in there that, is whatever it is. It just needs to have that automation connected that is sending them the guide or download or whatever that they are requesting.
Can you share a little bit with the audience, maybe someone who's you feel is really utilizing this service with you? What are they using it for, and what kind of success they're seeing?
We have clients who have built out Facebook groups for, moving to their area.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever someone registers or whenever someone, tries to get into the group, it's like, hey, do you want to download my relocation to the area guide? Or do you want to download my neighborhood events guide? I update it monthly. So you know what is happening for the kids in the area, and
I like that one.
Yep. They will just pop in their email and get the guide.
So they come upon this page, because I know there's some top people around my area here. They have, moving to St. Augustine, something like that type of thing, Facebook pages. They're going on there, and as they're putting in their information to be accepted into the group, right? They're filling out this information, which then can be taken over to your landing page. Yeah.
Even we have a client that has a podcast, and she just talks about the things that are going on in the area, does, little real estate market facts here and there, but primarily it's talking about the events that are happening in the area and how it's growing and things like that. And she will reference, just like I'm about to do, her landing pages in her podcast. So if she were to say, just go to coreopscollective.com/freebies, and you can grab this, you can grab our real estate readiness or real estate team readiness guide.
Mm-hmm.
Now people are going to go there and grab it, or she puts it in the show notes.
Are you seeing them doing it for, I imagine they're doing it for particular neighborhoods?
We do have one out of Baton Rouge, and we have guides built out for different, particular areas of Baton Rouge that she updates frequently. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It really does not. It just really one page. It's truly a landing page. Now, one thing I learned, I had a gentleman on, actually someone I went to high school with. For those listeners, remember Jim just last week. It was just 2 episodes ago. He has realtomato.com. He actually he's been building websites for agents for over 20 years, been in the business. And one of the other things for those who don't have landing pages, and you agree or disagree with me, this is I believe with AI, the AI search is coming around. And I obviously, those of you who've been on, I've had Lyman Starmer, who has an AI home search that he's trying to get out to agents that, just searching. But if you go on AI right now and using natural language, as if you're talking to ChatGPT or the others, and you're describing, hey, I want to, move to Northeast Florida. I'm looking, for this, or World Golf Village, or whatever. You're mentioning these things in sentences, because typically you're writing in somewhat sentences, maybe even text message format. But the blogging is still big. And I have a landing page, topjacksonville agents.com, and there's actually 3 other landing pages attached to that. But blogging is back in style because AI is getting a lot of its answers from people who are blogging about that subject that you're looking for. And a great way to build a landing page is also build a landing page and then have the blog and be going in there regularly, putting a blog in there. It's not that difficult I'm sure there's people who love writing blogs and spending the time, putting in all the details, but you can compile a bunch of information and ask the AI to help you write the blog. And it's very simple. And now you have information there that someone might be led to your landing page because they're on AI searching about something your blog is talking about, and they end up landing on your page. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's come very, very, very important. All right. So we were going down through the services here. KPI dashboards, financial tracking. Oh man, I imagine for most agents, this is like new. Tell us what you're doing there and how it helps them.
Yeah. So the KPI dashboards, we call it our CEO dashboard. And it really is saying, this is how many you have under contract, this is how many you've closed year to date, all time, etc. This is your biggest lead source. This is your net income year to date, is your gross income year to date. And so the financial tracking piece of it definitely goes into there. However, we have separated that as well to really break down, we want to get crystal clear on, if I have a listing, I can expect it to cost me X amount in order for it to close, so that your cost of sale and what your take home is going to be, versus, okay, I have a, $150,000 listing and I provide a cleaning and photos and this and that, and I'm going to, discount my commission, and now I've made $40.
Right.
Versus I have a $600,000 listing and they don't need a cleaning because they have regular cleaners and, just things like that. Exactly what you're going to walk away with. There's no guessing.
Well, even to go out before you even go out on the appointment, some of these things that you may have to do already by plugging it in there and going in there with this kind of spreadsheet in your mind of, this is what I normally do. I spend this much on photos. This cleaning, maybe you can track that of it. But I just imagine that a lot of agents, when they get to this point and you're training them up and building these things out for them, are wowed by this.
It's honestly one of the biggest portions of our service. Is it takes the least amount of time for us, because I'm not going to go through your expense reports and things like that and get it all together. It kind of is more just an educational process in this.
Well, you're providing the tool, right, that helps them. They need to plug in the info. Yeah.
Correct. Yes. But we're going through and we're saying, hey, based off of what your, gross commission was last year, these are based off of a mix of Millionaire Real Estate Agent, Profit First, and just, real life trial and error from our team. This is where your subscriptions should be X percent. Your marketing should be X percent. And if you're not paying yourself payroll or you don't have an admin staff or anything like that, doesn't mean you can just go and double your marketing without knowing whether or not it's going to be worth it. I wanted to say this before. All agents right now are looking for the silver bullet, the fastest way to get more closings, even if that means their cost of sale has doubled because they're doing a pay-per-close, lead service. And those can work for a period of time if they need to, but it's not sustainable over time, because you still have to pay for other things as well. And if your cost of sale is outrageous,
right?
So yeah, we go through and
the other bills add up.
Figure out what their budget is.
Yeah, and catch up. I'm gonna just make sure you move over a little bit to you. I think you're right. Just so you stay center. So, because obviously we cut reels out of this, you were starting to fade off to one side there. This part here, if I get, I actually started listening to one of your podcasts there. I didn't get very far because I didn't realize that until I went into your page this morning and you listed a podcast, but I started listening to it. But one of the things that you do is coach or advise, or maybe you have a better term for it, for these agents who do have a vision of a team and the structures and the roles? Am I right?
Yep.
Tell us a little bit of how you attack that, because, and the reason I'm behind this question for the listeners that are out there, there's some here, I've seen it, I love you all, but because of I've interviewed so many of the top agents, and then I see people coming on and I see what they're doing and where they're at in their real estate career, and there's so many different ways to do the business. And whether, I know there's one broker out there that'll tell you hire an assistant first. Another person will say transaction coordinator. Other people are teaming up with, new agents, so to speak, to train them as well as have them, do their open houses and maybe run buyers when they don't have time to do it themselves, that kind of thing going on. There's so many different ways to do the business. How do you tackle the roles and responsibilities as you have listed here, and the hiring part for those who visualize a team of some description?
Yeah. So we will take you through the scale framework, and then we have a second framework that we're working on right now to become even bigger and better, but it's essentially the team aspect of it, where you can't grow your business even just solo without having that strong foundation in place. So a lot of agents, they go and they say, hey, I want to bring on a buyer's agent or a showing agent or things like that. But if you don't know how you are going to show up for your clients, how can you expect other people to show up for them? That was one of the biggest lessons that I learned from running the real estate team that I did previously, was if you don't have standards and expectations for yourself, how are you going to have them for agents? It's the same thing as, like, I expect my kids to make their beds in the morning, but how can they come into my room and see that mine's not made? That's not cool, right? But we go through, what do we want the culture to feel like? What are we going to provide them as far as training? And, what are the standards and expectations that we are going to hold them to for, lead generation? And are we going to be paying for leads for them to close, or do we expect them to use the education and resources that we're providing them? Are we going to have a specific admin just for the team, or is the admin going to be shared? There's so many scenarios that we go through, and none of them can be answered unless you know what you want to do with the team.
What are some things that you don't want to tell someone they can't do something? Imagine you try to avoid that, because you just don't know. They feel that's the way they want to do it, but I'm sure there's some things that you probably don't highly recommend. Some things where you truly, people, they have this vision, but they have a vision with no knowledge. They see other teams. Keller Williams has a lot of teams. Other brokerages, their structures, some people created a team and they're being really successful, but they don't really know what the inner workings of that makes that successful. But they see it on the surface, and when they come to you, I would imagine you realize right away they have no idea actually what is making that clock tick on that team. They just see this. They just see the photo shoots and obviously they're obviously producing. Hopefully they're looking at those numbers going, wow, that team's really doing really well. I want to have a team like that. How do you dissect that?
It's such a loaded question because on one hand, no, I don't want to tell someone that they can't do it a certain way, right? Mm-hmm. But, history does have a way of repeating itself if you don't learn from other people's mistakes. And so when I was bringing agents onto my previous team, essentially, if you had a pulse, you could join. Mm-hmm. And that led to a really fun, sorority. But yeah. The production wasn't there for everyone. There were some agents that were selling 8, 10, 12 houses a month. Mm-hmm. There were some that didn't sell one in a year. And so you can imagine the resentment that created.
Yeah.
Where she's doing all the work. She's not doing anything. They're both getting the same benefits by being on this team. And unless you have a really clear understanding of what your core values are, the culture that you want to create on the team, and what those standards and expectations are, you should not have a team. Now, it's different if you're just bringing an admin in. Okay, if you're bringing one other person in, or you want to create a micro team, it's kind of surrounding you. That's a little bit of a different story, because the standard and expectation is if you do this role that we are creating for you, then you get to stay. You get your paycheck, you know. But it's different for agents and showing assistants and things like that.
Because you and I have been in the business a period of time to see a lot of these things, some of these agents come in, and even the ones that have been there 1 or 2 years, they still don't have a full 30,000 foot view of what actually is going on. Would you agree with that? I think a lot of them, everyone has this vision of a team, but when you sit back and go, hold on a second, do I want, in, like you just said, I have an agent that's doing really well, doing several homes a month or more, and then I got the other agent that's doing one every other month, a couple a year. Am I going to put the energy into that? Because I think everyone thinks big is better, but it's actually really, I think the best teams that I see around are really, lack of better words, picky on who they bring in.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can't be picky on who you bring in if you don't know what you stand for. You don't know what you want.
Right. Right.
And because at that point, it's like, oh, you have a real estate license and you'll look good in our photo shoot with us. Come on.
Some of them I believe actually have that criteria. So, you mentioned hiring as a resource. What are you doing for, because I imagine you are working with some teams, obviously, from that standpoint, and the importance of having, because it kind of bleeds off what we were just talking about. They're hiring because they don't know how to interview the person. You've only been in the business a few years and you think you're busy, but now you want to bring people on, but you don't even really realize what you just did in the last 2 or 3 years to be able to truly interview someone to see if they actually are going to be someone who's going to be a positive attribute to your team. Where do you come in from a hiring, are you helping them, in the sense of recruiting agents? Are you helping them, or just helping them more in the operational staff?
We don't help with recruiting agents as in going out and finding them. We do help with creating job descriptions, creating, their first 90-day plan of what they need to accomplish in order to be able to stay on the team. We do help with, figuring out what interview questions need to be asked for what your culture is going to be.
Right.
But we don't go out and set the appointments for you or find the people, because that needs to be a you thing.
Mm-hmm. You've mentioned culture a couple of times. Describe to us what, I would imagine that you have to bring this out of a lot of your newer clients of what actually, there's a surface level. They think they know what they want, but then what are some of those deeper questions that you're asking them that really draw out this culture that you're hoping that they're going to describe what they want, but they don't realize what they want because they're just looking at the surface because they don't know what's below the surface that you can bring out for them.
So in our capture attention portion of our framework, we go through a core values map, and that is interactive. We're sitting together and I'm giving you a list of, 1,000, and not really 1,000, but feels like 101 different words. And we're taking, more than 10 seconds to just look at each word and say, hey, does this resonate with you at all? Because when you know what your core values are, when you know what you stand for, decisions become incredibly easy. And when you have no idea what path you want to be on, the question of should I start a team or not is one that will float around in your head forever. Because, when you understand what you value in your life and what you want to wake up and get excited about every single day, those hard decisions become incredibly easy. They become incredibly clear. And so we go through this core values mapping to kind of narrow down to a set of 3 to 5 words that you encompass not only in your business, right, but in your everyday life as well. Burnout, you hear about burnout every 2 seconds, I feel like, on social media, or just agents saying, oh, I'm so tired, I'm so burnt out, I don't want to do this anymore. Well, it's because you're not doing things holistically. And so, for example, for myself, my core values are stability, contribution, and creativity. And I ask myself, on big decisions like, hey, should we do this service or should we introduce this product, down to, should I buy this thing on Amazon? Is this going to provide stability, or is it going to take away, some financial stability from my family because we don't actually need that? Am I able to contribute to the real estate industry, but also, contribute to my kids? Am I able to be creative in all of these aspects? And so narrowing down to what your core values are, that's going to create the basis of the majority of, your messaging, the majority of your team. If education and empowerment and community are 3 of your core values, then you should probably go start a team, because you want to pour into people and you want to create that environment that is welcoming and, where people feel like they can ask any question at any time. But if your core values are more, I'm drawing a blank right now, unfortunately.
That's
Your core values are more on, I want to persevere for myself. There's nothing wrong with that. But go build a micro team where you have 3 or 4 admin that are doing the day-to-day things, and you're focused on building those relationships.
Do you suggest or go in and analyze like a DISC assessment or something similar to that with them?
We do a little bit, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do it fully, only because I know, even for myself, I've rigged a DISC assessment previously before I even knew what it was. I was applying for some virtual assistant job, and it was like, needs to be detail oriented and needs to, be very on top of deadlines and all of this. And I was like, oh yeah, I can do that. No problem. And it came up that I was an SC, and I've taken it 1,000,001 times since then. And then, no, I am a DI for sure.
Well, I think that would be,
we'll say it that way.
yeah. I mean, the unique thing about this business, and those that are still listening to us here go on, what I'm digging into and what Lauren is coming across with, this business is so unique. You can't really, authenticity is a word we haven't used today, but has often come up when I'm talking to top agents and what their success is. They're authentic. They're them. They're doing things that they like to do within the confines of the business, because there really is, if there was 10 ways to lead generate, you're not good at all 10. You might be good at 1, 2, and 3. Then go do 1, 2, and 3, and you could have a successful business. You don't have to be successful. Actually, doing all 10 would probably make you unsuccessful, because you'd be so scattered across the planes, you really never would focus deep enough on any one lead generation source. But this business is unique, and you need people like Lauren, because every agent, and I'm sure you could probably say, well, this agent's like that agent, but they're not. They're 2 different people. They look differently. They sound differently. They live in different neighborhoods or whatever. I mean, you name it, they're different. And I think, getting with Lauren and digging deep, as with any real estate coach, really, but she's going to give you the ops side. Your typical real estate coach is not going to also give you this whole perspective, like, okay, this is the back end business to support this business you just described. And you really need to sit down with someone like Lauren and dig deep on how you want your business to look like. What do you like doing? What gets you out of bed in the morning? And that, I imagine you really start there. What makes you happy, and go and just really go deep on it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The whole like set the vision and then the core values mapping is a very large portion of the program.
Yep. You have on here and so much more. What haven't we talked about?
So we do have our one-on-one coaching for operations development, and that's really your admin person. We're going to train them. We're going to develop them. We're going to make them the growth partner that you need by your side versus the check the box task checker. And then with that, we also have our core ops community, which is just for operations, real estate operations people only. We have our inside our DOO boot camp just to go through, how to become a better leader. We're having weekly masterminds. We're having, new guides and templates and all of those sort of things that the ops person can go in and be around like-minded growth partners.
So this is obvious to me, but I doubt it's obvious for most. And from this standpoint, I think a lot of agents, hire a friend or whatever, or be my assistant. Okay. Well, what's that assistant going to? And some of them are paying him a salary. Well, what are they supposed to do for you for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week? What are they supposed to be doing? The real estate agent has no idea because they've never been an assistant. They've only been a real estate agent. I imagine you help them set a job description, the tasks that they need to be doing on a daily basis, and how they should set their schedule and so forth. Am I right?
Yeah, we're doing a lot of that in our strategy scale program, actually. And so the one-on-one coaching would be, okay, now you have that admin, let's build them up even further. Or if you've previously set up systems on your own and you hired an admin, you can start with one-on-one coaching and figure out where the gaps are, figure out, how to really embrace that role that they're in.
Give us some things that is, if you're a solo agent right now, you're doing really well, and you choose that the first person that you're going to expand the team on is an assistant, which I know there's some people that tell you that is actually who you should bring on first. What are some of the things that they should immediately be taking off your hands right from the get-go? And then, based on your coaching, your experience with different agents, because I know some agents like to take the things a little bit further, but really what you need to coach that assistant up to be doing to really maximize, obviously, their time, but also leverage them to be more you as a real estate agent.
Yeah, we like to say that your assistant should be an extension of you. So they need to know what your, values are, what your brand messaging is, how you're showing up in all of these places. And so if you get a lot of your leads from Facebook groups, not one that you run, but one that, you're just a member of, but you're commenting, hey, download my buyer guide, things like that.
Right.
They can go and show up in that same exact way. They can make sure that your past client touch plan is being, seen to the end, because those handwritten note cards that we mentioned before, like they can be doing those. They can go through and audit your CRM, make sure that every piece of data or, contact information, whatever it is indeed in there. I could go on literally forever on what an admin can do for you, but right. They can take social media off of your plate. They can take lead follow-up off of your plate. It truly depends on what don't you like doing, That's part of the scale framework as well, is doing a time audit. Just like you go to the doctor if you want to lose weight and he's like, hey, write down what you eat every day for a week. We have you do the same thing. Write down what you do every day for a week. Don't include I checked Facebook for 5 minutes, those little things, because over the course of the day, that's going to equal an hour, I bet.
Well, and the important things for the listeners out there, as I'm sure Lauren understands, there are people actually who have people who are monitoring their social media, going on and interacting, because social media is designed to be social. And if you are not responding, well, you may not have time to go in and respond. But if you're paying an assistant to go on and take, 15, 20 minutes on each of your social medias a day, go through and make, complete comments to people, full sentences versus just a like that doesn't do anything, I'm told, but that you're actually, making comments. They want a social interaction. So if you're going on and reaching, your past client comes up, oh, I did, what a great birthday party. Looks like you guys had a great time, whatever. You need to be making those comments. And if you don't have time to do it, you need to, that's obviously something, one of the things the assistant. So Lauren's going to have that list of many things that your assistant can be doing. So to make sure you're not just throwing money and they're sitting there watching soap operas when they could be, have you done this today? This should be on their checklist. Have you done all these chores today? And if you've completed those, here's several other things that you can continue doing to fill out your day. But I would imagine most people either don't hire one because they don't have a full list of things they should be doing and don't think they have enough work for them to do, when really there actually could be work for them to be doing on a regular. Now, you CRM and entering names and stuff in the CRM, very important. I did see something, I don't know if it was an ad somewhere that, or someone told me, there's a CRM out there now where you can actually voice it. Say, hey, add John Smith with phone number 1223 to the database, and it'll do it. Which technology is going to get us there? So, but people still, you would think. I had Marky Lemons, who out of Chicago does the podcast for NAR, and she's very involved, instructor and everything. She's if you follow on LinkedIn, Marky Lemons comes up all the time. But she said I imagine she might not do it today, but in her heyday, her goal was actually to add 8 people to her CRM every day. Yeah. So all of a sudden, so everyone you meet and shake hands with, you're at the grocery store and exchange, you're getting their information, and you're adding that to your CRM every day to do that follow. Every new person that you meet or come in contact with, to try to add their information to your CRM so they start receiving your information.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And obviously, a lot of people, by the end of the day, you're like, whatever, and you don't remember. But if you have that assistant, the assistant could be looking that person's up and looking at person's Facebook and getting their information and adding them to your CRM. So, absolutely, yeah. I had what I've been doing is I have I pulled all the information you gave me, your website and everything, obviously your bio, and I had obviously ChatGPT gives me an outline. Now I haven't looked at any one of these questions yet. I know what I actually wrote down here. I want you mentioned it earlier, and I think you just mentioned it a little bit ago, your brand voice. And I would bet also that a lot, and I want everyone listening to understand why I've said this several times, why many agents are trudging through. There are very few who are just flying high, and because they've got systems that, like Lauren, can help you put together. They have this brand voice you call, and I think you got to have your brand is out there. They're being trained. Oh, you got to your brand. What does that even mean? Because I think most people have no idea what that truly means and how important it is to really get you. Have you seen the movie Formula One with just came out this summer with Brad Pitt? Brad Pitt's asked. He's obviously the race car driver. He's older, and he's there like, Brad, why do you keep doing that? Brad's not his name in the movie, but they ask him, why do you keep doing this? And he basically says something like, because I'm waiting for the day that I'm just like. And I think he might have used a different word, but just coasting around the track, just like he's floating on air, type of thing. Everything is, all these systems and everything is all, working at its just perfect optimum levels, right? And part of the reaching that optimal level of success in business is the brand. And I think that's one thing where everyone could have an opportunity to improve. But explain to us what you say you help them find their brand voice, or help them establish that. What does that really mean to the agent?
Figuring out through your messaging, how are you showing up consistently? If you are going to have someone come into your business, how are they going on those same Facebook pages and making sure that they understand what it is that you embody? And so if one of your core values is education, right? Making sure that in every comment that they leave, they're providing some sort of education. Or when you're building out your buyer guide, your seller guide, your listing presentation, all of that, is it centered around education? Or, how are we making sure that all messaging is consistent across the board? If you are just going in and saying, I help buyers and sellers in their real estate journey, great. So are 1.4 million other people. What is it that you do that is setting you apart from all of them? I think in Florida, I used that last year on something. It was like 1.4 million realtors in the US, and in Florida, there's like 180,000 alone, And so how, especially in Florida, because there's a gazillion of us, how are we making sure that you're setting yourself up, one of those planned.
Well, no, I like it. And I want to, and this is where, getting with someone, Lauren, can help you drill down on it. If education is your thing, like you say, you're giving a little nugget, you're telling a little story, to help, improve, like you said, I just help buyers and sellers do it. Yeah. So is every other agent. That's your expectation. That's your baseline. What is it that's special about you that you provide? Now, I had an agent on, Michelle Tremblay, just a couple weeks ago. She focuses on high-end properties out here in Ponte Vedra Beach, which is, near the TPC Sawgrass where the golf tournament's held and everything. High-end homes, obviously. They're on the water and on the golf course or both. And I forget the word she used, but basically when she does an open house, she's got champagne glasses. She goes all out. I mean, to really make it a really special thing. That's what she's building her brand around.
Yeah, she turns it into an event. It's not just something for lead gen that she has to do.
Right.
Goes all in on it. If you embody education and you're showing up on a Facebook comment saying, "Oh, I can help you." Okay, great. You're not giving them anything else.
Right. Right. Always be looking to add a little nugget of knowledge, right? Right. Yeah, I like that. So this is stuff that you need to drill down, but going back to Brad Pitt and driving around the racetrack on air, if you want your real estate business to be, coasting around the track, which if you haven't seen Formula One, it's actually a pretty good movie. It's not a men's movie. It's actually not too bad. I wouldn't rate it as maybe the Mission Impossible level movie for those who like to action, but for a good movie, definitely when it comes out on the streaming, just get it. But anyway, if you want your real estate business to be coasting on air, you've got to get with Lauren or someone just like her and get these back office systems down pat, get everything running on auto, knowing your assistant should know what to do every day and be your assistant and not be there and basically almost finish your sentences. Would you agree? Yeah, they need to be that well in tune with your business. They need to be knowing what needs to be done every day to you can be moving forward and be out there. But Lauren, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I don't think so. I think we covered.
Yeah. So Lauren's information is obviously going to be in the show notes, all her links, coreopscollective.com. Reach out to her team. You have some other teammates. You want to just say a little bit about the other two ladies on your team there?
We actually have a few people on our team. So we have our director of operations, Shannon Blacker. She is a former educator. She's a former real estate team operations manager. And she's just been such a blessing to have on our team because we have truly catapulted since she came on. And so she's one of our strategists. She's one of our coaches. She really is my right hand. We also have our executive assistant, Lauren Wyatt. She was my first hire for Core Ops. And at the time I was like, oh, another Lauren. Like, yeah, what a great idea. Now we call her the other Lauren because it gets a little confusing. It's a nice running joke. She is the most consistent, most, determined and honestly dependable person that you could ask for on your team. She is going through and optimizing and really building out our client care department right now. And I know she's going to head that up fantastically. We've got our social media coordinator, Victoria Holiday. She is, you wouldn't be able to tell, is it me or is it Victoria posting this, commenting on this? She is the extension of me for social media, and that has been life-changing.
Excellent.
And then we have someone who helps with our strategy to scale service. She does a lot of the implementation, the creative design, and things like that. Her name is Brittany Reeves. We outsource her right now. She owns her own virtual assistant business called Bright Solutions, but she'll be in-house one day.
Excellent.
Yeah.
But reach out to the team here if you're interested in learning more in detail what they can do for you. Lauren, I appreciate you. Hang on here. When I hit the thing, it's going to kind of pause when I turn the video off, it's going to pause for a second and then you come back on. But stay on for a moment here after the show. But again, coreopscollective.com. Lauren Duke, thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This may be it for today's episode of Real Estate Excellence, but we both know your pursuit of excellence doesn't stop here. To connect with the best of the best and really take your skills to the next level, join our community by visiting TracyHayesPodcast.com, where you'll meet more like-minded individuals looking to expand their inner circle and their personal experience. That's available at TracyHayesPodcast.com.